Hi there, this is Pastor Fred. We're ready for an Old Testament reading today, Genesis 22. And I'm reading through the Bible chapter by chapter. I think I'm going to slow down for a little while and read one chapter at a time and kind of finish the book and maybe give just a little more explanation of what I'm reading along the way. Not to get complicated or controversial at all, but just to give you a little more information at the chapter as we read. And I'll kind of just stop as I'm reading along and give a little explanation. So, with that said, let's jump in. Chapter 22, it says, "It came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here am I." And that's how we need to answer when God calls us. When God calls our name, we need to say, Here am I. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering unto one of the mountains, upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee. Many things in common with Jesus' crucifixion. Number one, Moriah, that is the same place where Jesus would be crucified. Number two, God's only son is Jesus, like Isaac is, of course, Abraham's only son. And Jesus is our sacrifice. Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place of which God had told him. And then on the third day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. Because we know the third day after Christ was crucified, he resurrected. And Abraham said unto his young man, Abide ye here with the ass, I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again unto you. And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire of his hand and a knife, and they both went together. And Isaac spake to Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? A couple of things there. Number one, Isaac is obviously older than we picture him as a little kid. He's asking his dad. He can look and observe the circumstances. He said, Dad, we got the wood and we got the fire, we got everything. Look, where's the sacrifice? A good question. Great answer from his dad. God will provide. And it says in verse 9, and they came to the place where God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar there upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called upon him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, again, the same answer as in verse 1, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. That's how we know that God loves us, right? He never withheld his son, his only son, from us. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said today, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, said the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. And Abraham returned unto the young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Micah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chez, and Hazo, and Padash, and Jelaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These 8, Michael, did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name whose name was Ramah, she bare unto him Tabal, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Machiel. Well, a lot of good reading there in that chapter. A lot of things to be learned as we think about it. Abraham is a type, as we call it in the Bible, of Jesus and what God would do for us. Aren't you so glad that God loved us? We understand it when we see it in human form. When we see what Abraham's doing with Isaac, we can say, oh my goodness, don't do it. But when God does it with his son, for you and me, we understand what truly a loving gift God gave when he gave Jesus. Aren't you glad for that gift today? May God add his blessing to the reading of his word. We'll see you tomorrow, chapter 23 of Genesis, as we read through the Bible chapter by chapter. God bless.